Have you ever felt that there's just too much to do and not enough time to do it? Too many things on your to-do list. Does that sound familiar? Do you get overwhelmed? It could be in your work. It could be as a boss, as a professional. It could be in your property investing or whatever. I guess it's part of today's demanding environment. 24/7 things are happening. You're continuously looking at your phone, your smartphone, your iPad. You're never left alone. So overwhelm has become more and more common. And that's the topic of today's Build a Business, Not a Job podcast. Now, I run these regular Build a Business, Not a Job podcasts once a month between the regular Michael Yardney podcasts when I chat with my business partner, Mark Creedon. But today's show, it doesn't matter whether you're a business person, a professional, an entrepreneur, or just an employee and a property investor, or you want to become more successful, because that's just the way the world is at the moment. We all get overwhelmed at times, and that can stifle your creativity. It can actually affect your mental health, your physical health, your well-being, your relationships. So today, we're going to concentrate on understanding what causes overwhelm, how to recognize it, and how to prevent it. So at the end of today's show, you're not going to be overwhelmed anymore. Isn't that going to be good? So welcome to today's episode of the Michael Yardney podcast.
Welcome to the Michael Yardney podcast, where twice each week you will learn a number of new ideas regarding success, property investment and money in around 30 minutes. Our show is brought to you by Metropole, who specialise in helping you grow, protect and pass on your wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. Now here's your host, Michael Yardney, Australia's most trusted property commentator who has once again been voted Australia's leading property investment advisor. That's the fifth time he's won a similar award in the last 7 years.
There's just too much to do and not enough time to get it all done. Now, does that sound familiar? If you ever feel that way at work or just in your normal life, you're not alone. Today's demanding work environment and technology keeps you hooked into work 24/7, and it has a large number of us feeling overwhelmed. Most of the time, being overwhelmed boils down to having too many priorities to deal with, trying to please too many people, not having enough time, not having enough resources. But no matter how you define it, being overwhelmed can stifle your creativity. It can defeat your productivity. It can lead to you making more mistakes, minimizing your feelings of accomplishment. So being overwhelmed doesn't actually just affect your work life. It affects your work-life balance, your relationships, whether they're at work, outside work. It can put your health at risk. So what can you do to regain control? Well, that's what we're going to have a chat today about. So let's find out with Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind and business coach to some of Australia's most successful entrepreneurs. Welcome, Mark.
Hello, Michael. Good to be here.
Well, Mark, I know I feel overwhelmed. I know other people do. I know you and I have chatted about it in your role as my business coach. You've given me some guidance on how to overcome it. So let's have a chat about it.
So, Michael, there's really 6 steps that I like to work on in how you work on overcoming overwhelm. So maybe if we go through those 6 steps. Number one, I think the important thing to remember about overwhelm is that it's normal. It's perfectly normal. It happens to us all. We all feel that feeling of overwhelm. We feel that there's just too much to get done. There's too many things on the to-do list at the end of the day, and we don't have the time or the ability to do anything about it. But if you understand that it's normal, it helps to show 2 things. It helps to show that that you're not alone. But I think more importantly, it shows you that if it's normal and other people suffer from it, and they've been able to overcome it, then so can you, Michael.
Well, Mark, I think it was really, really important because when you pointed that out to me a while ago, it gave me permission. It was okay.
It is okay. And I think the other thing to think about, to remember with overwhelm is I like to look at overwhelm as a little bit like an onion. There's a number of layers to it. So usually what happens with overwhelm, we don't just wake up one morning and we're overwhelmed. It comes about as a result of layering a whole bunch of competing interests, competing pressures. So if we realize that it comes about by being layered, then how we reverse it is by peeling apart those layers, Michael.
Well, I guess the first thing is to recognise it, and the effects of overwhelm show up differently in different people. Some people, I notice, get irritable. Some get short with their employees, their boss, with their family. Others actually get quite debilitated. They can even get depressed, and they don't even come to work. So I guess we're talking in general, or you talk in general to business people, but this particular podcast is relevant for you whether you're a business owner and you're overwhelmed, or whether you're an employee and you're overwhelmed, or you're a business owner and you're wondering what to do if your employees get overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Lucky you and I never become short with anybody, Michael, so that's okay. But it's the thing about overwhelm is that once you understand it's normal, the good thing about that is that if we're talking about sort of peeling back those layers, now we can move into that process. So what are the things that you need to do? And one of the first suggestions I always make to people when I speak to them and find that they're suffering from that real overwhelm is to try and find a way to take a day out. In fact, I'm actually going to withdraw that statement, Michael, and say, rather than trying to find a way to take a day out, take a day out. Actually get some time away from what you're doing. Remove yourself from the very environment that causes the overwhelm, because it's quite amazing what that little break, whether it's a day out, whether it's a half a day. I was talking to one of our mastermind members the other day, Michael, and you know Graham quite well, and he made a really good point, because when I talk to people about taking a day out, one of the greatest objections that I get is, I just don't have time. And Graham made this really great comment on a webinar we ran about this very point when he said, you know, I used to say that as well until I got so overwhelmed that I became unwell. I actually became physically sick, and I was forced to take time off to recover. So the question is, would you rather take time off to recharge and overcome the overwhelm on your own, or be forced by your body because you become unwell to take that time off and recover?
So you really got to recognize it, and recognize it early before it does affect your body. And sometimes it's just the things going on in your mind, the things that you're saying to yourself, like that self-talk, I'll never make it, I can't get this all finished, or the frustrations and the irritability. So I think what you're saying is get in at those early stages before it actually gets to the point where we all know it, that our mental health affects our physical health, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I guess the thing too is that if you can't find space in your calendar, and I'm going to talk about the importance of the calendar in a second, but if you can't find space in your calendar to take a day out, then find your happy place. So maybe it's spending some time with the kids or family, maybe it's going to a movie, maybe it's playing a round of golf. Whatever it might be, find that place that actually makes you happy. And you know the concept of anchoring yourself in that happy place. So find that place that sort of makes you happy, and make sure you spend some time in that place. That's how you recharge. See, our emotional energy is a lot like a bank account. And if we keep withdrawing from the bank account without putting something back in, we're going to go into overdraft eventually. And it's exactly the same with your physical, your mental, and your emotional energy. So find a way to put investment back into the bank account. Find your happy place, spend some time there. And the really important thing about that is to lock it into your calendar, Michael.
See, most people don't give themselves the luxury of doing that. They say, oh, look, I've got 10 things on my to-do list. I actually haven't got time. This isn't important. But I think what you're telling us is it is important.
Oh, it's vitally important. But there's some more things that you can do. So in addition to sort of taking some time out or finding that happy place and locking that into your calendar, I guess the other thing, and you touched on it before, that we when we're in overwhelm, we can sort of have that feeling of, I can't do this. I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to make it. And one of the ways to overcome that is to get back in touch with your why. So why are you doing what you're doing? Why did you start your business in the first place? Why are you in the job that you have? Getting your why clear in your head again, it's just reminding you of why it is that you're going through the process, and that can act as a motivation and incentive. And the thing about that is that sometimes the why is not necessarily the why you did something in the first place, but maybe it's a why you're doing it now. So, for example, I was talking to somebody in Mastermind the other day, and they were saying that their big why at the moment was they want to take 6 weeks off and go and spend 6 weeks in New York. So reminding themselves of that why, that purpose right at this point in time, gives them that little shot in the arm to be able to kick on and push through the current overwhelm.
That makes a lot of sense because you've got to have a reason why you're doing it. Otherwise, the overwhelm can get to you.
Yeah, it can. And, if you're struggling to think about what your why is, then ask your friends, ask your family, ask your work colleagues, ask your staff, get your team around you and get them to remind you of what the why is. I was talking to somebody the other day, Michael, who was in this overwhelm mode, and we went through this process and I said, okay, let's talk about what your why is. Why did you start your business in the first place? Why are you going into your business and working long hours and putting yourself through this? And, she actually couldn't remember. So it's no wonder that overwhelm took over for her because there was kind of no defense against that overwhelm process.
So if you know why you're heading in the direction that you're heading, the reason behind it, it gives you the motivation to keep going because if you've got to do the things you've got to do, then you'll eventually get to the place you want to get to. So it gives a meaning to all this that you're doing, all the tasks that are there. And I think it, again, will remind you, hey, this is normal because if you want to get beyond everybody else, if you want your business to grow further, if you want to be more successful in your career, you actually are going to have to do more than others. Mark, being successful isn't easy. It is hard, but that's why the rewards are great at the other end.
Yeah, 100%. What's the old saying? If it was easy, everybody would do it. So, it's not easy, but that's why we need to keep all of these things in mind. And again, Michael, there's no single point here that we're talking about that's probably going to overcome overwhelm. If we think about the fact that overwhelm has come about through being layered over time, we've got to use each and every one of these steps to get us to that point. And the last thing about understanding your why is once you've reminded yourself on your why, I love to see people write their why out somewhere and stick it on the wall so that it then becomes a constant reminder. It's like that constant affirmation of why it is you're doing what you do to help you move past overwhelm when it comes around and for that awful little visit at some stage in the future.
Well, people poo-pah affirmations, or some people do, and other people poo-pah the picture boards where you've got the house that you want to move to, or the car that you want to have, or the vacation you want to go on. But I have found they are great motivations. They're visual reminders constantly there in front of you to remind you of the why.
Well, I don't want to generalize, but I'm going to suggest, Michael, that probably most of the people that poo-poo those things are the people that actually don't live in the house they want to live in, don't drive the car they want to drive, don't go on the holidays they want to go on. So it's interesting when you hear people say, oh, that's just rubbish. They're usually the people that actually haven't achieved what it is they're looking to achieve. So that's 100%. Nice segue into the third point I want to make, which is planning. The old saying that a failure to plan is a plan to fail. And in my mind, if you can create a plan, then and what happens is you have direction. Now you have structure, you know where you're going, you know how you're going to get there. Suddenly, the concept of overwhelm becomes less relevant because you now have a clear picture of how to move past it, Michael.
That makes a lot of sense. And again, it's hard to get where you want to get to because if it isn't, you'd probably already be there anyway. So it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about having a plan is it's really going to give you, I call it the 2 C's, which is certainty and clarity. And if you can get certainty and clarity, see, overwhelm doesn't like certainty and clarity. Overwhelm actually lives in the uncertain and the unclear because that's what, if you think about it, when you are in overwhelm mode, they're the two emotions you have. I'm not certain about what's happening. I don't think I can move past it. I'm unclear about what the future holds. If you can get certainty and clarity, you're going to push overwhelm out the door.
But I bet you people are saying to you, Mark, I understand that, but I haven't got time to plan because I got all these things on my to-do list.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the greatest objections I hear to that is exactly that, Michael. I hear say, I haven't got time to plan. I haven't got time to get that done. It reminds me of that old sort of, adage about the guy cutting down the trees, and he starts with a sharp axe and he starts cutting down the trees. And as he moves through the trees, it gets harder and harder and harder because he doesn't take the time to sharpen his axe. And at the end of the day, he might as well be using a sledgehammer to try and get the trees down. If he'd just taken the time to stop and sharpen the axe, he would find that whole process so much easier. And that's exactly what you've got to do with planning. You've got to take the time, lock it into your calendar, dedicate the time to actually write out a plan. And I do mean write out a plan. So a plan in your head is not a plan. That's just a thought. So actually write out a plan. And you'll find that if you've got that plan in front of you, along comes certainty, along comes clarity, goodbye overwhelm.
Okay, you said there are layers to the onion. We've gone through a couple. Let's unpeel another one, Mark.
The next one is to break things down. So any task or project that's sort of contributing to overwhelm, it can be broken down into bite-sized chunks. It's sort of, I saw this great quote the other day, Michael, which I really loved. It said, the problem is that we treat our business or our job or our life as a marathon rather than a series of short sprints with breaks in between. And I love that saying because it reminds me of the value of taking a project and breaking it up into bite-sized pieces. See, every project that we embark on, no matter what it might be in business, in our jobs, in our life, every project that we embark upon can be broken down into pieces. If we break it into bite-sized pieces, suddenly the overwhelm of having to achieve, 200 things in one step is removed if we move from step 1 to step 2 and then step 2 to step 3, Michael.
Right. It makes sense because I can actually cope with that little task. I mentally think I can do that. But the bigger task, that could well be overwhelming for me. So that makes sense. Now, I actually would like to have a bit of a chat with you about some tools that could help. But before we do, a couple of times you've mentioned Mastermind and you've mentioned your clients, and I know what you do. Many years ago, you started as my business coach, and now you're my business partner in two of our joint businesses. But some people listening to this may not know, and you mentioned Mastermind a couple of times. So why don't you tell us what that is before we get into some more detail about how to overcome overwhelm?
Well, Michael, what I do is I actually help people to build a business, not a job, so that they can get the time, the money, the freedom to achieve the dreams that they want to do, to maybe reignite their passion, to understand why it is they started in their business in the first place, and to move away from actually being controlled by their business, which is really just a job, and moving into the position where they're in control and they've got all of those opportunities in front of them and they're able to achieve them without actually killing yourself in the process.
Well, that's what the overwhelm is in some ways, isn't it?
It is. And, the thing about Mastermind, Michael, is that Mastermind's a program which is what I call a hybrid program. It's a program that's come about as a result of my many years of business coaching. And, I've been working with you for nearly a decade now, doing lots of one-on-one work, learning from the mistakes that I made as a young business person and, getting into that overwhelm and nearly killing myself in the process, working out how there's a better way and finding ways to break things down, get some structure to what you're doing. And of course, all of the lessons that I've learned from coaching great, successful entrepreneurs such as you and putting it into a program. Now, the reason it's a hybrid program, Michael, is because there's lots of access to me. There's lots of access to one-on-one. Now, people in the Mastermind program, of course, get access to you, but they also get to learn from each other in a group environment. And that's a really important component of Mastermind, Michael.
I can understand why many business people would want the group environment, which happens twice a week, but virtually, so they don't have to leave their office. They just close the door and actually find a tribe of people who've got similar challenges, similar goals, because it's actually pretty lonely out there for a lot of professionals, entrepreneurs, and business people.
Yeah, it is. And there's only so much of your business problems, if you like, or frustrations that you can share with friends or family. And, Michael, you've got friends. I have friends who aren't in business, and, they all think it's roses and you can do whatever you want. You can pay yourself whatever you want. You can work whatever hours you want. And we know that's not the case. So having the opportunity to share those sorts of frustrations with other like-minded business people who are going through the same process, some of whom who have been through the process, you can actually learn from them as well, is a vitally important component of Mastermind.
Well, I'd be recommending anyone who's in business at the moment or in a profession or an entrepreneur who is feeling a level of stress, feeling a level of overwhelm, or not achieving what they want to achieve, actually does take the time to have a one-on-one chat with you to understand where the Business Accelerator Mastermind is appropriate. So there'll be a link in the show notes, or go to metropolmastermind.com.au and find out all about it. Now, back to overwhelm, Mark. So we've understood it's normal, it's okay, It doesn't mean that you've got to put up with it. So we've had a couple of hints from you about what to do. When I recognize that overwhelm was normal, when I recognize that when I get rid of this group of tasks, a whole group of other tasks are going to come, I felt okay about it. Already just accepting that was useful, and recognizing that if I actually got rid of everything off my to-do list, I'd probably wonder, hey, what's wrong? It doesn't feel right either. But you were going to mention some tools that could help us overcome overwhelm.
Yeah, I think the important thing to remember there too, Michael, is that busy, successful people never really get rid of everything off their to-do list. It's a bit of a pipe dream. And I think if you got everything off your to-do list, you'd be horribly bored. So successful people don't get rid of everything off their to-do list, because what happens is as they move things off the to-do list, the floodgates open and just more and more things come in. So that's why it's important to get on top of the overwhelm process so that you can actually deal with those floodgates opening. And there's a number of tools that we use in Mastermind, and those two tools, the main tools that we really use is what we call our one-page plan and our sprint planner. But really putting it in very simple terms, our one-page plan is really a business plan which is on one page. I'm a massive believer in keeping things as simple as we possibly can. You should be able to structure what you need to do on a day-to-day basis and say planning out to the next 90 days on one page. And if you can do that, the advantage is that you can have it somewhere in front of you. It's easy to refer to, but it also makes it easy for you to share it with other people. The other thing, Michael, is this is not just for business owners, because if you're in a job, in your general day-to-day life, we spoke before about planning. If you can find a way to have a nice, simple plan. So what I do in the one-page plan is I start with my why. What are my 3-year goals? Where do I want to be? If we're having this conversation in 3 years' time, what would it look like? I then move across to, okay, in order to get there, what do I need to achieve in the next 12 months? In order to achieve that, what are the projects I need to work on in the next 90 days? And in order to achieve those 90-day projects, what am I going to do on a weekly basis? So it goes weekly, 90 days, 12 months, 3 years. Nice, simple, 4 quadrants, 1 page. If you follow that process, you'll actually address a lot of the steps we've spoken. Because if you look at that, what we've done there is we've done the things that we said. We've taken some time out. We've actually got in contact, in touch with our why. We've created a plan, and then we've broken things down. And the final little tool that we use is the sprint planner. And the sprint planner is really just saying, if I've got a single project, let me break it down into up to 8 steps. So I'm no longer looking at it as one project with this, massive picture in front of me that I've got to try and achieve. Rather, I've got 8 simple steps that are going to get me there.
Well, I found people in Mastermind use the one-page plans to plan out their business and suddenly realize I don't need this 30-page business plan that I was taught in business school. They get simplicity, clarity. They know where they're heading. They also can then convey that to their teams to make it easier. And it's a great way for entrepreneurs to build their business as well. So that's just one of the many, many resources in the hub in Mastermind. And the combination of those two things, the one-page plan and the sprint planner, has made things a lot easier for them. So you've got so much to do, you don't know where to begin. It gets you stuck. You feel frozen. You feel overwhelmed. Maybe we've now started to give you an understanding of how you can get to the next level. So stop, take a break, take time to look after yourself. Even if the break's a short one, but particularly as Mark suggested, give yourself a day off. Now, again, that's not easy to do if you're the boss, but I think we've recognized you've got to do it. And it's not necessarily easy if you're an employee, but then go to your boss and explain what's going on, ask for help, speak to somebody. And as an employer, as a boss, as an entrepreneur, there's no one else to speak to. Who are you going to speak to? You're at the top of the tree. And that's why so many employers, so many entrepreneurs, business people feel the overwhelm. And to be honest, one of the reasons I got a business coach many, many years ago, and one of the ways I still rely on Mark, is when something like that happens to me, you know it, Mark, I pick up the phone and I give you a call, and I know in your capacity you sometimes do it to me as well. And it's just useful to have others around you to speak to about this who understand what's going on. That's one of the strengths of a mastermind. That's one of the things I learned from Napoleon Hill about the benefits of being in a mastermind, that when you have a whole group of people who are motivated to move forward, you end up with a mastermind, something bigger than the group of people, Mark.
100%. And, Michael, that is one of the great things that I see in our mastermind. Not only do people bounce things off me, and you and I bounce things off each other all the time, but they also get the opportunity to bounce things off each other as well, and they learn from each other. And, as a coach and sort of running the mastermind program, one of the things I really love to see, one of the things that gives me a real buzz, is to see people posting things on our mastermind Facebook page, seeking advice from each other, and really taking the opportunity to learn from that collective wisdom that comes from a mastermind.
But that's one of the things I really enjoy seeing too, how willing other members are to help others. And that's one of the great things, the generosity of already successful business people. They know the importance of helping others get where they want to. So if you want to find out more about it, go to metropolemastermind.com.au. And of course, once a month in between the regular Michael Yardney podcasts, I have a chat with Mark Creedon, founder of Business Accelerator Mastermind, in these Build a Business, Not a Job podcasts. Thanks for your time, Mark.
Always a pleasure, Michael.
Well, were you overwhelmed with the show today? I guess there's an overwhelmed and an underwhelmed, but does that mean you actually can be whelmed? I don't know. Anyway, I hope you got some benefit from today's show so that you are going to be able to cope with the hassles and the stresses of everyday life, and just accept the fact that if you are a high achiever, you will in general feel overwhelmed, and it's normal. But if you got some benefit from this, as I got when I learned these lessons, I'd like you to share it with somebody, and they don't necessarily have to be in business or in a professional life or an entrepreneur, because basically I think we all get that way at times. So on every podcast app, there's a share button. Just let somebody know about it, or send something through Twitter or Facebook, because just like I'm trying to help you, I'm trying to help as many people as possible, and I'd like you to be part of that cause. So let's help others get on with life. In between the Michael Yardney podcast, once a month I bring you these Build a Business, Not a Job podcasts. But if you want to find out a little bit more about Mark Creedon and the Mastermind program, you can go to businessnotajob.com and you can find out a little bit more about how he helped me and others become successful business people and entrepreneurs. I look forward to catching up with you again, because, twice a week I bring you this podcast, and in between you can always subscribe to my property update newsletter to get tips on success, on business, on entrepreneurship, and of course on property. I look forward to catching up with you real soon. In the meantime, have a great week. Make it a great week.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Michael Yardney podcast, which was brought to you by Metropol, who help their clients grow, protect, and pass on their wealth through strategic property and wealth advice. If you like what you heard and don't already subscribe, you'll find us on iTunes or on your favourite Android app as the Michael Yardney Podcast. Watch out for our next show, which comes to you twice a week, and you'll learn some new ideas about property investment, success and money in around 30 minutes. To get more of Michael's thoughts, go across to www.propertyupdate.com.au and sign up for his daily morning briefing, and you'll hear from not only Michael but a group of leading property success and money experts. And just a reminder that the information you heard in this show today is general educational advice and not specific investment advice, as we don't know your personal circumstances. If you're looking for specific advice, why not ask the team at Metropol to help you?